All right, let's jump right in to today's deep dive. It's all about daily routines, but with a Spanish twist.
Ooh, sounds intriguing.
It is. Our listener sent in some clips from this language learning video, Jaime Lara Español.
Okay.
And we're gonna kind of unpack them, not just the words themselves, but what they tell us about, life in Spain, Spanish culture.
I love that approach because it's one thing to learn the vocab, but it's another to really understand the context, right?
Exactly. It's like a glimpse into how another culture thinks, their values, priorities, all that.
Good.
And the video starts off with the morning routine.
Makes sense.
Those everyday things we all do, like despertarse, to wake up,
Mhm.
levantarse de la cama, to get out of bed.
And already we're seeing some classic Spanish grammar at play here.
Oh, yeah.
Reflexive verbs. Despertarse, levantarse.
Yeah.
They use those pronouns like me, te, se, to show that the action is happening to the subject themselves.
So in English, we just say I wake up, but in Spanish, it's more like I wake myself up.
Exactly. There's this subtle emphasis on the self, like you're actively doing the action to yourself.
I like that. It's like taking ownership of your morning.
Right. It's
Huh.
not just something that happens to you, you're making it happen.
Very cool. The video also mentions lavarse los dientes or cepillarse los dientes.
Brushing your teeth.
Right. And duchars, to shower.
All those essential morning routines.
Pretty universal no matter where you are in the world, right?
Absolutely. We all got to start today somehow.
But then it gets into some things that, well, they might be more culturally specific, like hacer la cama, making the bed.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, I was thinking in some cultures that's like a must-do,
Definitely. And in others, it's like, who cares?
Exactly. So the fact that Jaime includes it in his video, it kind of suggests that it's important in Spanish culture, wouldn't you say?
I think so. It could be about tidiness, order,
Mm.
or maybe even starting the day with intention, like you're setting the tone for a productive day.
That's a good point. I like that. So even something as simple as making the bed can reveal deeper cultural values.
Exactly. That's what we're all about here, right?
Totally. All right, so moving on from the morning routine, let's talk food.
Always a good topic.
The video covers the basics. Desayunar for breakfast, almorzar for lunch, cenar for dinner.
And of course, we can't forget merendar,
Ah, yes, merendar.
that wonderful Spanish tradition of the afternoon snack.
I wish we had that more formally in our culture. A dedicated snack time. But anyway, back to the meals. The video points out something pretty interesting about lunch.
Oh, yeah.
It says that the most common way to say lunchtime is actually la hora de comer, literally the hour of eating.
That is interesting.
Like, it's not just lunchtime, it's the time to eat,
Like the whole day revolves around it.
Exactly. Which makes me wonder, what do you think that says about Spanish culture compared to, let's say, American culture, where lunch is often like a quick bite at your desk?
Well, it definitely suggests a different approach to work-life balance. Like in Spanish culture, the midday meal is a time to pause, connect with family or friends, really savor the experience of eating.
Makes sense. It's not just fuel, it's a social thing.
Absolutely. And it's not just grabbing a sandwich on the go either.
Right. We're talking a proper sit-down meal.
Exactly. The video even mentions things like poner la mesa, setting the table.
Right. Hacer la compra, grocery shopping, cocinar o hacer la comida, both meaning cooking.
And of course, the after-meal cleanup. Fregar los platos, washing the dishes.
It paints a picture, doesn't it?
It does. A culture that values food, meal prep, those shared moments around the table.
So we're seeing how these daily routines, they're about way more than just the practical activities, right? They're woven into the culture, the social fabric of Spanish life.
Absolutely.
And speaking of Spanish culture, there's one routine that's, well, it's practically synonymous with Spain.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
The siesta. Echar la siesta or echar una cabezadita, that glorious afternoon nap.
Ugh, the siesta. A true cultural icon.
Do you think it's still a common practice in modern Spain? Or is it more of a, a romanticized notion?
That's a great question. It probably deserves its own deep dive someday. But I'd say that while the siesta may not be as widespread as it once was, the values behind it, rest, relaxation, a slower pace of life, those are still very much present in Spanish culture.
So maybe not everyone's taking a full-on nap in the middle of the day anymore, but the idea of prioritizing downtime, that's still important.
Exactly.
I like that. All right, so we've covered waking up, getting ready, those amazing Spanish meals.
Yeah.
What comes next in a typical Spanish day?
Well, after that amazing lunch and maybe a little siesta time.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, exactly.
Uh-huh.
It's back to reality.
Back to the grind.
Back to the grind. The video mentions era trabajar, to go to work.
Of course, of course.
Universal concept, right?
Gotta pay the bills.
Yeah, everyone's got to work. But it's how we get to work that can be so different depending on where you live.
All right.
Absolutely. And the video highlights some common ways to get around in Spain.
Like what?
Well, it starts with ir en metro, taking the subway.
Okay, so picture yourself, you're zipping through those underground tunnels in Madrid or Barcelona, surrounded by locals going about their day.
It's a great way to experience a city, isn't it? Like, really
Yeah.
feel the energy.
Oh, totally. And if subways aren't your thing, there's always conducir, to drive.
Or ir en autobús, to take the bus.
Speaking of buses, I remember reading that in some South American countries, they say tomar el autobús instead.
You're right. It's a small difference. But it shows how diverse the Spanish-speaking world really is.
Even within one language, there are all these regional variations.
Exactly. It's fascinating.
Right, so cool. It's like with each new word you learn, you're uncovering another layer of the culture, the history.
I totally agree.
All right, so we've talked about work, transportation, but no daily routine would be complete without chores, right?
The chores, haha. But they got to get done.
Unfortunately, yes. The video mentions a few common ones. Hacer la colada, doing laundry, plancha ironing, and bar sweeping.
Yeah, pretty standard stuff.
But I'm curious, do you think there are any cultural nuances to how Spanish speakers approach chores compared to other cultures?
That's a good question.
Like, in some cultures, there are strong gender roles associated with certain tasks.
Right. Well, I can't speak for every Spanish-speaking culture, of course, but historically, there have been those traditional divisions of labor within the home. But like many societies, I think those lines are becoming more blurred as gender roles evolve.
So maybe it's not so much about who does what, but that everyone chips in and contributes.
That's a great way to put it. And that sense of shared responsibility, I think that's definitely something we see in many Spanish-speaking cultures.
Makes sense. All right, well, we've tackled the not-so-fun stuff. Let's move on to something a little more enjoyable, leisure time.
Yes. Everyone needs a little downtime.
Jaime's video mentions some classic activities. Ver la tele, watching TV. I notice he uses the shortened form there, la tele.
Yeah, it's like saying telly in English.
It's more casual, more everyday language.
Exactly. Makes it feel more relatable.
And of course, no modern routine would be complete without some screen time. He also mentions navegar por internet, surfing the internet, and mirar el correo electrónico, checking email.
It's a reminder that no matter where you are in the world, technology is a big part of our lives now.
Definitely. But we still need those face-to-face interactions too, right? The video covers some common social activities like sacar al perro, walking the dog, quedar con amigos, meeting up with friends, hacer llamadas, making calls.
And then there's hacer recados.
Which literally means running errands.
Yep. But as we've seen with other examples, sometimes a literal translation doesn't quite capture the full meaning.
So there's more to hacer recados than just, checking things off a to-do list.
Think about it. What might running errands look like in a bustling Spanish city versus a small rural village?
Good point. In the city, you're probably weaving through crowds, hopping on the metro, maybe stopping for a café con leche along the way.
Exactly. You're immersed in that urban energy.
And in a village, maybe it's a more leisurely stroll, chatting with your neighbors, stopping by the local market.
You're experiencing a completely different pace of life.
So the same phrase can have such different meanings depending on the context.
It's all about the lived experience.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from waking up to winding down.
And everything in between.
But Himi goes a step further. He actually suggests 4 specific routines for personal growth.
Oh, yeah?
Hacer, ejercicio deporte, to exercise, agradecer, to be grateful, leer, to read, and meditation.
That's interesting. It's like he's weaving self-improvement into the fabric of daily life.
Exactly. And I like how he makes it seem so achievable, Like it's not about these huge, overwhelming goals. It's about small, consistent practices.
I agree. And the choices themselves are interesting, too.
Yeah, what do you make of them? They seem to touch on physical, mental, and emotional well-being.
It's a very holistic approach.
Do you think they reflect certain values or priorities within Spanish culture?
That's a great question. I think it's a mix of universal appeal and cultural resonance.
How so?
Yeah, I mean, practices like exercise and meditation, they've gotten pretty popular all over the world, right? But they also fit in really well with some traditional Spanish values, I think.
Oh, that's interesting. In what way?
Well, think about how much Spanish culture emphasizes physical health, enjoying life.
Right.
Exercise just fits right in there. And gratitude, well, That ties into those strong family bonds, the sense of community, appreciating the simple things in life.
Yeah, yeah, I see what you mean. It's like these practices, they're both modern and timeless, personal, but also reflecting cultural values.
Exactly. It's a really clever way for Shimi to include them in his video. Because it's not just about teaching vocabulary, it's about offering a deeper understanding of the culture and maybe even inspiring people.
To adopt those practices themselves.
Right, like, hey, while you're learning how to say walk the dog in Spanish, why not actually take a nice mindful walk with your furry friend?
Uh-huh, I love that. It's about connecting the language to real life.
Totally.
But, it's easy to get caught up in these general descriptions of daily routines. Like everyone follows the exact same schedule.
Right.
But I imagine there's tons of variation, right? Depending on the person, the region, even different generations.
Absolutely. Spain is a diverse place.
Yeah,
A young entrepreneur in Barcelona is going to have a very different day than a farmer in Andalusia,
for sure.
or a retiree on the coast.
So even though we've learned all these Spanish words, they're just pieces of a much bigger picture.
Exactly. Think of it like, ingredients for a recipe.
Okay,
You can follow the general guidelines, but you can also create your own unique dish.
I like that. So for our listeners out there who are maybe inspired to learn more about Spanish, what advice would you give them?
I'd say embrace the diversity. Don't just memorize words. Explore different regions, listen to different accents, talk to people from all walks of life.
That's great advice. It's like we started with this deep dive into daily routines, but now it feels like a whole ocean of possibilities has opened up.
That's what it's all about, right?
Hmm.
Keeping that curiosity alive, diving deeper into things that interest you.
Well said. And to our listener who shared those language learning clips with us, we hope this deep dive gave you a whole new perspective on Spanish, on the culture behind those everyday words. Maybe it'll even inspire you to try out some of those routines yourself.
Or at least the spirit of them.
Exactly. So keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those deep dives coming. Until next time.